Hey everybody, it's Tasha. I wanted to do this video as a follow-up to my service recap because while this episode wasn't particularly action-packed, it really had a lot of important emotional and psychological beats. And they did an important job of showing the strain that the situation has put on Rick and how it's changed his relationships between him and his community, his family, and his immediate household. Rick's day starts out with his girlfriend sneaking out on him. Then Neegan shows up a week early. He spends the day being emasculated in front of his child, the entire community, only to have Spencer decide that this was a great time to throw the deaths of two of his close friends right in his face, and then it topped off with the big reveal that Judith is not his biological daughter. So I want to start by talking about Spencer. This character really grates on my nerves. He's spoilt, he's privileged, he's clueless, and he really is lacking in humility. This is something that his mother was trying to teach him right up until before her death, that he needed to step up, he needed to be a better leader, and he still just doesn't seem to get it. So I do appreciate that. I think we all know this character is going to die, but I'm glad that in this episode they used him to show that the Rick that we know is still there. The guy who bit out someone's throat to protect his family is still there. It's just lurking beneath the surface. He spent the entire day being battered and bullied by Neegan, but he isn't completely broken because when he stopped and he told Spencer that he was going to break his jaw, you knew that he was very serious, and so did Spencer. So it was good to see that part of Rick after spending so much time with him just so low and not being used to it. It was nice to see him have that moment. So next I want to talk about Carl. Now I know a lot of people are probably not liking his character right now. They're probably blaming him for Negan taking the weapons, but I feel like it wouldn't have mattered whether he pulled that gun or not. I think Dwight pretty much displayed that they were going to take the guns no matter what. I feel like Carl's actions were completely in tune with the character. As far as he's concerned, him and his father, their group, they fight. That's what they've always done. He doesn't know how to be any different. This is the example that Rick has set for him. When they were at Terminus, they barely made it out, and when they did, the place was overrun by walkers. It was on fire, and even then, Rick still wanted to go back and finish off the cannibals that were there because, as he said, they don't get to live. So for Carl, he's looking at this situation like, I've seen my dad do this before. He gets overwhelmed. He kind of breaks down when there are too many losses and he can't deal with it. So if he's not going to step up, then I am. I'm not going to just let us lose more people and we get overrun and not do anything about it. And really, there's nobody to blame for that except for Rick, because this is the example that he set. And he's told Carl time and time again that you're not safe. So no matter what, you need to step up. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect our family. When I'm not around or I'm not doing it, then you need to do it. And after Carl witnesses basically both of his uncles get their brains bashed in right in front of him, this is obviously his instinct is going to be, I'm going to fight and I'm going to take care of the rest of the people that we have here, even if my dad isn't. I just don't care because somebody needs to do it and somebody needs to step up. That could come off as him having a complete disregard for consequences, but I don't take it that way. Looking at Carl's frame of reference, they lost the farm, and with it, Carol's daughter, Andrea, Dale, but they still managed to regroup and find something better. they made it to the prison. And when they lost the prison, they lost a huge number of their people, including Herschel and Judith. But again, they managed to find their way back. They regrouped and they found something better. So, Carl's perspective is that you can't just stop fighting out of fear that there's going to be a consequence or something bad is going to happen, because you never know. It may work out and something good will happen. So, I kind of see his choices or his actions as a logical step with his character, not a bad or a poor choice. So next I want to talk about Michonne. It was cool to see her taking on a little bit more comic book Andrea with a sniper rifle, especially if Sasha's going to be spending more time at the hilltop with Maggie. But it was also really sad to see the strain that this situation has put on her and her relationship with Rick. We go from this to this. It's from Adam and Eve eating apples to her looking at him like she really doesn't recognize who he is anymore. Michonne is a protector. It's who she is at her core. It's why she fought against the governor so hard, not just to avenge Andrea, but to protect the people who were in the prison. And now it's worse because now she has more to lose. She's in full-on wife and mother mode. She'll put herself between them and anything if it means keeping her family safe. And Rick is just not in a place right now where he can handle that. He doesn't want to have to worry about losing her on top of everything else. Like he said last season, he doesn't take risks anymore. They're both really emotional. Her running on pure rage and him running on pure sadness, so they can't seem to meet in the middle. It's why they can't see eye to eye. That's why I'm glad they used the conversation about Judith as a means to opening up a line of communication between the two of them. It showed her that even though he's sad and he's guilty because of the deaths, that he hasn't stopped using his tactical mind. He did consider going back after Neegan. He considered the Alexandrians and the group at Hilltop, but he realizes that they don't have enough ammunition, enough people, or enough training combined for them to take on a force as large as his. And also, there's a big difference between the Alexandrians going out and taking out a large amount of walkers than killing live people, even if they're evil. They aren't prepared for that situation. So he knows that it just won't work. Do I think Michonne will give in and stop trying to find a way to take out Negan? Absolutely not. That's just not her personality. That's never going to happen. But I think what this conversation did was ease some of the tension and the strain in their relationship. She has a better perspective on where Rick is coming from, and this way he doesn't have to fight a battle on two fronts, because he can't be fighting Negan on the outside, Walker's on the outside, and then fighting basically his wife and kid at home. That's just too much pressure for him. He can't handle that right now. So this way, when the situation is more settled, when she has an actual plan, when they are able to get together with the other groups, she can try approaching him then about attacking Negan, and she'll have a better approach because she knows exactly what kind of headspace he's in and how he's feeling about the situation. So the last thing I want to talk about is Negan. I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I loved him in Losers. I loved him in Watchmen, but he will always be Denny Duquette from Grey's Anatomy to me, and I think he is just killing this role. But the character of Negan really perplexes me. I'm trying to figure out exactly what his motivation is. We see him, and it feels like he keeps saying he wants this group to produce for him, but he's going out of his way to batter them. And he should be smart enough to know that a happy worker is the most productive. With the Hilltop, it seemed like he showed up, made his presence known, killed one kid, the 15-year-old, and since then, he's pretty much left them alone. They had a drop off for their produce at one of his stations, and it doesn't seem like he's been back to the hilltop since then. And then with the kingdom, the residents there don't even know about the saviors. They bartered a deal with Ezekiel, and they have a designated area where they can go and drop their items off so that no one else knows that this is even happening. But specifically with Rick's group, he comes in with his nursery rhymes and he's huffing and puffing just to put up this big show and this big display for that specific group. So it makes me feel like he is really pushing them for a fight. I feel like in Rick, he sees that even though he doused that flame in him, there's still that little spark left. And because of it, he just wants to keep pushing. And I also think that because he has Daryl captive and Daryl just won't break, it probably has him thinking, well, if this guy has been tortured and mistreated and he's still strong enough to withstand that, but he's following this other guy, exactly how strong must Rick be for him to have somebody as willful as Daryl be following him? So I feel like that's why Negan just keeps pushing at Rick and his people so hard. Because when you look at it, he knows. He keeps insulting Rick, he keeps demeaning him, but he knows that this guy has to be pretty tough. It's not once, but twice that Rick's group has taken out a portion of his men. Daryl and his bazooka did it on the highway and took out a chunk of his men then. And then they just strolled into one of his compounds and murdered a huge portion of his group in their sleep like it was nothing and then went home. So Rick, I feel like Negan knows that he has a solid adversary in Rick, and that's why he's behaving the way he is. And I think that it really just does make him look like more of a coward. And in a way, they've been displaying this since episode 1. If Negan was as big and as bad as he is portrayed to be, or as they're trying to, or as he portrays himself to be, then he would have faced off with Rick one-on-one and been done with it, rather than using the people around him as leverage. Because I think he knows he really would have a fight on his hands if it was just him and Rick. I mean, he gave Rick the axe in the first episode, but when Rick went against him, rather than fighting Rick, he pulls a gun. Then we go ahead and we go to this episode, and once again, he's using other people or something else as leverage against Rick rather than just to go head to head with him and put him down. I think he kind of likes that push and pull, and part of him also admires Rick, but this is a bad choice because eventually there's only so much someone can take. There is going to be a point where Rick is just not going to care anymore what's at stake because you've degraded him to such a point where he becomes reckless. That's just human nature. Everyone has their lowest point or their boiling point or that situation that it's just one step too far that he just can't take it anymore. So that was Negan's flawed logic. His better bet would have been to just kill Rick and be done with it. But this game that he's playing is never going to end well for him simply because you're going up against somebody that you're constantly pushing and you know that deep down this is a strong person. So this is just a very foolish choice on Negan's part. I know a lot of people might not like this episode, probably thinking that it's not fast paced, there's not enough action, but I really feel like episodes like this are necessary, especially for the kind of arc that this story will most likely take. As it stands right now, Rick has been kicked off his perch. That happened in episode 1, and now he's stewing in it. He was too cocky, and now he has to face the reality that his choices did have some bad consequences. The deaths that occurred were Negan's fault, but at the end of the day, as leader, the buck stops here. So he has to realize that what he did in not having research done on the Saviors before attacking their compound was a bad choice. Rick is tactical. He should have had Daryl and Rosita go sit on that compound, watch them for a couple of days, see how they maneuvered, not just assume that because this is what Gregory's group told you about them, that this is what it is. Because he should have known that, okay, there was one group out scouting the roads way over here, and then Gregory's telling me that there's another group that lives over there. You're never certain. You never know. And he should have enough experience after dealing with the people at Terminus and dealing with people before that at Woodbury that the bad guys can easily be spread out and that they always come back again. So now he's stuck dealing with the consequences of that. So seeing this episode roll out the way it was, the way it did, we know that nobody likes seeing the hero miserable. If any of you guys watch Arrow too, that's another thing. You always see the hero miserable, and we don't like seeing that. We want him to take action. We want him to lead. But I think going this route, it makes it so much more satisfying when he does get to have that moment, like with the claimers, where he takes his knife and just stabs it into the guy and kills him. Like, we're looking forward to that moment with Negan now, because there's been so much buildup and there's so much tension, and you know that he's so angry and so frustrated. So when he finally defeats him, that'll be so much more satisfying for the viewers, because we saw the long hard road that he had to go through to get there. So there's one last thing that I want to touch on before closing out this video, and that is Michonne's sniper lessons and whether or not she has another weapon. When we see her in the field for the second time, she's carrying the same bag that she put the rifle in before she left the house. Now, she goes through the field, and we know that this is her second trip because we see the walker that she decapitated earlier on the ground before she climbs on the car. When she gets on the car, she's sitting there with this bag next to her. What would be the reason for her to carry this bag if she doesn't have a weapon in it? She's not going on a run. We know this because they would have cleared out everything in the immediate vicinity by this point, and when Daryl and Rick went on a run, they had to take a car. So she went back to this field, obviously to continue training, so she would have to have a weapon that she just didn't tell Rick about. And I feel like the fact that she has a weapon in this bag is reiterated in the last scene when we see her go to investigate what's burning, and she no longer has the bag with her, which tells me that at some point between getting off the car and coming to the main road, she stopped and stashed the bag. What do you guys think? Do you think that she does have a weapon, or that maybe I missed something and there is no weapon, that she didn't lie to Rick about it? I personally think she's definitely taking a page out of his playbook, and that she stashed more weapons to protect them just in case.